Hi, welcome to Tiny Garage Fabrication. Do you drive a hoopty? Does it kind of embarrass you? Do you want to do some stuff to make it look a little bit better without spending a ton of money? I know I do. In this video, the focus is going to be my shop truck, which by itself is a cool car actually. It's a 1972 Chevy C10, but it needs a little bit of help in the looks department. So I'm going to do 5 cool things that are cheap and easy, and you can do it to your ride as well. Let's get started. Now, this is kind of a lame mod. However, it's something I don't usually do to my cars on a daily or weekly or monthly or yearly basis. Just wash the damn thing. Do a decent job, scrub the corners, shine your tires, just stuff like that. Even on not amazingly painted ride, this does make a huge difference. Case in point, my 87 Hilux, the thing has almost no clear coat on it. Like, the paint's faded everywhere, but when I wash it and get rid of the oxidation from the non-clear coated sections, and then I clean the wheels and shine the tires, the thing looks great. Alright, well, it's not perfect, but we'll take a look, do a little before and after, as I only washed half of it. Now, this thing hadn't been washed in over 10 years. I picked it up from where it sat. Paint's pretty oxidized. There's junk all over it. The window's just rough feeling. This side seems a little cleaner than the other one was, but there's just more junk and crud. Back glass. And the tailgate still needs washed, but my hose isn't long enough. I'll get to that in a minute. And now here's the clean side. Wheels are washed. Most of the junk is gone. Window looks a lot better. The glass a lot smoother. It could use a clay bar or something for sure, but it's better than it was. Next up, we'll get to the one thing that's probably the easiest visual change you can make to a truck, and that's the wheels. I'm going to show you 2 different options here. One is super cheap and the other not as cheap, but it makes a bigger difference. So the second thing we can do is to paint the wheels. Keep the wheels you already have, just change their color, freshen them up a little bit. It makes a big difference. Now, the first thing to do is clean it really well, and then here I'm using a sanding sponge to kind of rough up the paint a little bit so that my new paint sticks. And now, in order to not even have to take the tires off, I just let a little bit of air out of the tires and then stick some index cards or playing cards or whatever you have. Just kind of tuck it in between the tire and the lip of the wheel, and that will protect the tire from overspray to give you a cleaner finish on your paint job. And just shake up a rattle can and get to painting. And once your painting is complete, just remove the cards, wait for it to dry, then install your wheel. Now this wheel is paint's still wet. I literally just got done spraying it, but I'm going to mount it and show you what it can look like. You could also go, if you have center caps and trim rings, you could get new trim rings that would look a lot better than mine do. And you can even paint or freshen up your center caps. Now, that's about as easy as it gets for, at least a little bit of a visual change versus just the stock silver. Looks better, but we can go a step farther. Now, I did the same thing to my Camry here. I just went ahead and painted the wheels. It looks okay, but it could be better. Now, this certainly isn't as cheap as painting the wheels. However, changing the wheels out for something different is definitely an improvement. I got these wheels brand new, but you can always find decent deals on wheels on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Kijiji or whatever your preferred secondhand or used classified market is. So that makes a pretty big difference. Now, I did order staggered wheels. I ordered 18x8s for the front and 18x10s for the rear. I ordered them in June. It's currently just before Thanksgiving, and my rears have not showed up yet. That's the supply delay, I guess is what they're calling it. So just to make the truck look okay, I put both of my front wheels on the driver's side. Now, the wider wheel will fill out that wheel well just a little bit more. And here's what I did on the passenger side. I took two of the original wheels and I painted them. I painted them kind of a gunmetal gray just to match the custom wheels on the other side. And overall, it doesn't look terrible. You know, it gets by for now. And one thing that might get overlooked is lug nuts. Now these are pretty gross. You know, they're rusty, they're nasty, and just setting some new nuts in here can make a drastic appearance to the overall look of the wheel. Now there's several types of lug nuts you can get. You could go with a spline drive type, which has a little bit of security to it, in that you need a key in order to put them on and off. A regular socket won't work, and those don't look bad. These are more for, you know, tuner style wheels, especially because they're pretty thin. You know, you look at the overall profile and it'll fit into wheels that have a really narrow hole. A lot of the aftermarket wheels for you know, your imports and stuff like that will almost require a spline drive lug nut like this. So I got these on Amazon, just a set of 20. It cost me about 40 bucks. They're not perfect for what I want. What I wanted was a really flat top like this, and these have just ever the slightest bulge on them. Now, it doesn't make a difference on these wheels, but once I put them on the other wheels, I'll show you kind of why I'm not in love with them. But let me get these ones all done first. Oh, I didn't even have matching lug nuts on here. The size difference. Now it's pretty subtle, but it does make a difference. Now let me show you how it looks on the other wheels. All right, so here's how even just the slightest little bit can make a difference. So here's how the spline drive lugs look. Not really all that hot. This here is the just slightly longer nut. It just sticks out just a little bit proud of this flat face. This right here is one of the old lugs with the completely flat cap. Now this is the look I was going for. I just wanted to update these, and this here is what I ended up getting with just the slightest little dome. They don't look bad. They do sit just under or just flush with this. You know, not the worst, not the best. I wish they would have been more flat like this, because that look just really kind of sets it off. But I'm gonna get all these swapped out and we'll see what it looks like. And there we go. Much cleaner. Matches the outside, matches the center cap, and they're all pretty flush. And I think it looks pretty good. Now, one more mod that you can do that's fairly simple, normally doesn't cost too terribly much money, but makes another very big difference visually, is changing your ride height. I know that not everybody likes lowered vehicles, but just a little bit can go a long way. So on this truck, I've already lowered the front with some 3-inch lowering coils, and in the rear, I did a 4-inch drop coil. But there's still a whole lot of gap in between the tire and the fender well compared to the front. Now I need to go about 2 inches lower, but the problem with that is that I want to use this truck to pull a trailer and tow things, and the clearance between my axle and the frame itself starts to get shorter and shorter the lower I go. So in order to make sure that I don't bottom out and ram my axle into the frame, I chose to go with a 1-inch lowering block for the rear. So the kit I got includes the 2 1-inch thick blocks and new longer U-bolts to make it all work. Now luckily these U-bolts are long enough that I can put a 2-inch block in without having to get new U-bolts, and I can order a 2-inch block separately. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. Now I'm not going to go into the installation of the lowering block that much because lowering vehicles varies drastically depending on what type of vehicle you have. The suspension on this is pretty unique to 63 to 72 GM trucks. Really nothing else out there like it, so this would only apply to that anyway. However, lowering blocks are common on many type of leaf spring vehicles. If your axle is already on top of the leaf spring, it's as simple as putting a block between the axle and the leaf spring. Sometimes your axle from the factory is underneath the leaf spring, in which case you'll need to get an axle flip kit, which includes the bracketry to move your axle on top of the leaf spring, and then additional blocks will make the axle go higher in relation to the body comes down. Another thing you can do with coil springs is to cut coils. Now this is an example of one coil cut. I cut one loop of a coil. This was on my Camry that I showed a minute ago. And for the front springs, I cut a coil into half. So it makes a loop and another half. So that's something that you can do. You got to take these out and then, you know, just cut them a little bit. Cutting coils is fairly common. It's super easy, super cheap, and it definitely enhances the look of your vehicle. All right, I'm going to get these installed and we'll come back and see what it looks like afterwards. All right, here I've got the lowering block installed. It's this 1-inch spacer that goes between the axle and the control arm, and the new longer bolts. Now there's still plenty of threads left, which means that I can add a 2-inch block if I decide that's what it needs. You know, however, like I was saying, the space between the axle and the frame is pretty short. I'd say that's about 3.5 inches, and then to the bump stop I've only got about 1.25 inches right now. So I can always go with a low profile bump stop, or I can even drill through here and put in one of the single frame mount button style bump stops. But just imagine if I go to a 2-inch block, this is going to shorten by another inch. So kind of limits where I can go. I'm still not 100% happy with the look, but I'll show you that right now. So here is the truck with the 1-inch drop. Now I'll close that fender well gap pretty good. As you can see, it's closer to where the front is, not quite there. I'll do a close-up for you. So we've got a couple of inches versus a little bit less inches. However, overall, just that 1-inch did wonders for the look. Now, as big of a difference as wheels and tires make, there's one more thing that I think makes an even bigger difference. Okay, maybe not that big, but I'm going to talk about this situation. Now, I do have a front bumper. It's just not on right now. It's over at the shop prepping for what comes later in this step. So a lot of different vehicles had like a facelift or a mid-year revamp, and sometimes either the older or the newer model will have looked better than whatever you have. Case in point, this is the Grille shell for a 71-72 Chevy. Now, my personal favorite is the 69 and 70 Grille shell. I think it looked a lot better. It was just kind of clean and sleek, and I have one of those, and I'm going to prep it and do some other stuff to it that we'll get to when we get over to my shop. Another thing this has, which is absolutely just horrific, is this chrome insert. Now, this 71-72 Grille normally just had a big plastic, they called it the egg crate. It was just like a plastic grid. So a lot of people swapped this out in the, you know, late 80s, early 90s. This was like the thing back then, but well, it's not 1991 anymore, it's 2021, so this gotta go. And one of the other things is this trim back here. Sorry, it's a little bit dark. Some tailgates, especially some aftermarket ones that you can get, have just the Chevrolet script stamped into them, and if I ever decide to get another tailgate, that's what I'm going to get, so that I can ditch this. It's an aluminum piece, and then it had this used to be wood grain. It's just fake wood grain. And another option was for it to be in black. All of these letters actually bolt in from the backside, so I'm going to take this off, remove the letters, try to scrape off all this wood grain, and then we're going to refinish this whole thing here, as well as this. And the big thing back here is this hideous step bumper. Now, other trims of the truck didn't have a step bumper. They had a much more smooth, almost roll pan looking bumper, and I've got one of those at the shop. We're going to prep it and we're going to swap it. So these are just some of those mods that you can do to kind of change the look of things. I know that like in the JDM world, they have terms called, you know, Zenki and Kooky, which is like the early or the late model things. A lot of people will switch taillights and headlights from Zenki to Kooky or vice versa. It's really popular in like the Nissan, like the 240 SX community. It's really big there, as well as like, you know, some other things. I know that in my generation, the Celicas and the MR2s for all my Toyotas, it's really big to do it on those. But we're going to drastically change the look of the rear end and also the front end of this truck and bring it up to something more reasonable. All right, it is my due diligence. I would like to issue a correction. These letters, in fact, are not screwed in from the back. They are actually riveted in. But more importantly than that, I got the letters on this bitch. So, quick, I'm gonna wash that up. And when I get around to doing body work to fix this rust, I'm gonna go ahead and fix these holes that somebody screwed in to put this ugly piece of crap on there. Nice. So here's the rear bumper. I've already prepped the inside. Basically what I did is I just kind of sanded down some of the rust that was there, and I sprayed a rust converter and some black paint underneath there just to, I don't know, maybe help prolong it from rusting through. Now for the outside, it's chrome. Now if you've ever dealt with chrome, you know that you can't paint it. And you can, but it'll just flake off because it's so smooth that nothing really adheres or really bonds to it. Powder coating and painting, which are your standard processes, they just don't work. I've tried to powder coat chrome. It looks good for a little bit, but as soon as anything impacts it or scratches it, it just flakes right off. Same with paint. However, there is something that will work. It's something that's controversial to some, but it will definitely work, and it is the color that I want, I think. And it will definitely stick to the chrome. 100%, I will not have issues with it. I got it from world famous Dip Your Car. The product I chose is their Hyper Dip. I got this in anthracite gray. I bought a 6-pack. Now it did cost about $100 for these 6 cans, but 6 cans of regular spray paint these days would have come up to between 30 and 50 bucks anyway, and it wouldn't have lasted. So a little bit more money. You could maybe get away with less cans. I don't know. I do know that with Plasti Dip, you do want a good 3 to 4 coats in order for it to not only be durable and last, but also to peel off if you ever get tired of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this ready, and I'm going to start spraying this bumper and see if we can get through it in one can and grab another one if I have to. Anyway, this is the stuff I'm going to be using on the front and rear bumper, as well as the grill shell and the door handles, mirrors, taillights, any other trim that I can find that is shiny that I don't want to be shiny anymore. Now, following the directions on the Hyper Dip, I'm applying a 50% coverage, kind of a tack coat, if you will, just a really light spray, and then going over it with a wet overlapping spray for all the rest of the coats. It says to use 6 to 8 coats, and we'll see if we can get there.
Okay, so this is after the 3rd coat, and that was 1 entire can. Now it's still a little bit wet. I just got done spraying it, but I'll get around here. Now there's a regular chrome bumper, and here's this. I like the way it looks so far. I've got, 3 or 4 more passes to go. I expect to use another can, another complete can, and this bumper will be done. So here is 6 coats. This is just less than 2 cans. So with any luck, I should have enough to finish everything that I want to do. Now, while it's not perfect, there is a little bit of trash over here. I don't know, maybe that's some fuzz from a towel or something that I didn't notice. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, you've seen the rest of the truck. It's a hoopty, so this will look great at about 10 feet. I've got to strip and paint the back of that bumper and then do the Hyper Dip over all of it. I've got the tail light lenses working on the Hyper Dip, And then I've got to get to the grill, which I've set over here. I've already done some work to the grill. I will show you that here in just a moment.
Now with the grill, I want the letters that say Chevrolet to be kind of the shiny polished aluminum that they originally were. So I'm masking those, and the easy way to do this is to kind of press the tape down into the letter and use a razor blade and just kind of skirt the surface, and it will trim all the way around. And then you can leave the tape in there. Just make sure to press it down firmly so you get a good seal around the edges before you go ahead and paint the rest of the grill. This is a semi-gloss black. It says direct to metal, which is why I don't have any primer down, and my intention is to just spray the center bar around the Chevrolet letters. Now what I'm going to do, since I've painted this, I'm going to mask just this very center bar right here, and then do the entire thing in the hyper dip. And then when we peel this off, we'll be left with the black bar with the chrome letters and the anthracite gray on everything else. That's the plan. I hope it works out. I'm applying this masking tape. This is a fresh roll of masking tape in order to hopefully not peel up the black paint, as it's only been on there for a day or so. After that, I'm going to go ahead and wipe everything down and then hit it with a tack cloth. You can see how much junk I pulled off of there, even though I just wiped it down with acetone. Now using the hyper dip as per the instructions, just like with the bumpers, just like a 50% coat, and then we'll go over it with wet coats after that, with a 50% overlap, allowing it to dry between each coat. Here we are, just laying them down, laying them down, laying them down. You can see it progressively getting darker as I spin circles around this thing. Finally, I got all my coats built up, and it's time to remove the masking tape. I do need a razor blade to help just break that edge a little bit, otherwise I was pulling up a little bit of the dip. Now it's time to remove the masking tape from the letters and really make this thing stand out. Step bumper has been removed. It was easier than I thought. The 4 bolts holding it on, yeah, only 4 bolts, believe it or not. They were really rusty looking, but they spun right off. I was pretty surprised about that. Now, in order to mount the new bumper, I needed to get a set of bumper brackets. I ordered these from Tucker's Classic Auto Parts. It cost me 80 bucks to get these bought and delivered. Well, well, well. It would appear as if I struck again. So, I don't think this bumper was made for this truck, because I don't remember pulling this bumper off of a 67 to 72. I think this came off of the later 73 to 84 or whatever square body. Now, while the bumper bolt spacing, surprisingly, is right for the brackets, you may or may not be able to see there are actually 2 holes per bracket. And the bumper brackets only have 1 hole. And this clearly isn't where it needs to be. Doesn't fit right. And in the parts guide itself here, this is a just an LMC truck catalog. They do have great illustrations. It only shows 1 bolt per hole for the bumper. And this bumper also appears to not wrap all the way around, which makes me think I totally just have the wrong bumper. But I think it will work. So, you know, big oops on my part. But whatever. At least I know the front fits, so we'll get to that here in a second. Moving on from the tragedy of the bumper, I'm going to go ahead and use some hyper dip on this strip right here. Now I've just got it masked off on the car. It's not masked perfect. There's still a little bit of space right here even, but this stuff should just peel right off when I get there. Boy, it sure did get dark quick, but I got this thing all modded up. I wait for this last coat to dry. Hopefully, as it gets cooler tonight, it won't have an issue, and then tomorrow I will try to peel off the little strip that's left over. But I'm going to remove the masking tape now while I have the chance to do that. So peeling the masking tape off, we can start to get a look at how well this looks on the paint. And speaking of the paint, this paint is trash as my masking tape is just pulling it off. All that gray is actually the primer underneath. This truck was not painted very well by the previous owner. Now we can see how terrible this grill is. I can't even fit my fingers in here to get to the hood latch. So I got to use a pair of pliers to get underneath there, pop the thing, and this will be the last time I ever have to struggle with this grill. If you've never seen the rest of my project, make sure to check out the playlist linked up here in the corner, and you can kind of see what I went through to get this put together. A couple of bolts and the old grill comes off, the new grill goes on. We'll throw it in there with a couple of bolts just to put it on for the video, and we'll take care of all the fine tuning later on off camera. Now it's time for the bumper. This goes on with 6 bolts. Make sure it goes onto all the brackets. My brackets seem a little bit messed up, so I may have to fine tune this a whole lot more later. As for the headlight rings, I think I want to do them in black just to kind of go with that center bar. These headlight rings are for the 67, 68. They're kind of flat on all the edges, and the 69 through 72 have just a little bit of arch to them, and they fit the grill shell just a little bit better. Well, there we go. I think you get the picture. There's some more fitment I got to do. Looks like I need to order new bumper brackets, the outside ones, because the one over there looked bent, looked tweaked, and apparently it is. The fitment isn't the same. Also, the fitment of the grill isn't great. I need to readjust pretty much all the sheet metal forward of the doors. I just kind of threw it on there previously, but you know, it needs a little bit of fitment to close up all these gaps and get everything aligned properly. That's just one of the parts of reassembly that seems to take the longest, but get that done. However, it would be hard to say that that doesn't look better than that did. I like it. And match to the wheels is pretty good. Might be a shade darker, but that's fine. I think I like the way it all looks. I'm not quite done. One last tip, something that can make a big difference in how your vehicle looks is, you know, small things like this lens right here. Pretty faded, pretty worn out, and for about 10 bucks I was able to get a brand new one. So let's swap this out and see what kind of a difference it makes. Now I've got the red ones for the rear, and I also went and got new taillight lenses. So here's the old lens and here's the new lens. Yeah, that's a big difference. Here we got the new lights on the corners, as well as the new taillight lenses and the trim pieces installed. Definitely a sharper look, and we're looking at maybe 60 bucks for all the new lenses. That's for all 4 corners plus the taillights. So really not a super expensive investment for a nice little upgrade in sharpness. One more upgrade worth making, especially on older trucks like this. May not be applicable to your ride, but hardware note, this door handle is actually just completely broken. But besides that, see, it's really just all the chrome is peeling and pitting and looks absolutely horrible. So for about 40 bucks, I was able to get a set of new replacement door handles. They are much better looking, and they actually work. So that's nice. Now I'm also going to hyper dip these. I don't really want the chrome on here, so I'm gonna, you know, turn these gray before I install them. And I'm also going to remove and do that to the mirrors as well. So it's more of the de-chroming, just to hopefully kind of, you know, mute the look of the truck overall. So what do you think? Does it look better or does it look worse? I like it. Those are 5 things that I did that, with the exception of the upgraded wheels and tires, all that stuff was done for, I don't know, a couple $100 tops, and it completely transformed the look of that entire vehicle. Personally, I don't think the first thing you need to do to make a car look good is to, completely strip and, fix all the rust and repaint it. I think the kind of the gnarly, grungy patina look, it's still in, and it still can be really cool. Another bonus about it is really you can drive the car every day and not care if it gets a door ding in a parking lot, or, you get some mud and yuck on the road. It's fine. Just drive the thing, enjoy your car, make it look better here and there as you can and as you can afford and as you want to. That may not be everybody's cup of tea. Some people may need shiny paint and chrome everywhere, and that's cool. But that ain't my style. Make sure to smash the like button if you like what I got done in this video. Leave a comment about some other cheap and easy mods that you've done to your hoopty that I can do to my next hoopty, because there will be more, and that maybe some of the other viewers can do to their own hoopties too. Well, I think I've said hoopty enough for this video. That's all I got today. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next video.